It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does, and great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. For the next 60 minutes, we got a lot to take you through from the weekend that was and what will be. Hope you had a great holiday weekend, no matter what you are observing. We are guest-free for the hour today. Brian Kenny on the show tomorrow to kick off our guests for the week from MLB Network. Get some thoughts with him on a whole host of issues around Major League Baseball. We got the draft this week. Boy, it is going to be a great week of sports talk here. But we start things out with my man Sam Yarnell, who's hanging out with us on the show. All right, Sam, I watched the NBA playoffs this weekend as I was curled up on the couch, enjoying the weekend. WrestleMania weekend, which we'll get to a little later on as well, in Las Vegas. It was nuts out here in Vegas with WrestleMania in town. It'll continue to be nuts because I think they have Monday Night Raw here in Vegas later on Monday. But I want to start things out in the NBA and what we learned. We usually do this in the NFL on Mondays, what we learned from the weekend that was. And what we learned was everything I said about the NBA playoffs was pretty much true. That you were going to have there were a few really good series to watch. We focused on them last week when we had Kurt Heelan on the show. We thought Knicks-Pistons could be compelling. It was. We thought the Rockets and Nuggets would be an interesting series with a 2-7 matchup that actually a lot of people thought the 7 seed was the favorite in the Warriors. We kind of found out why last night. We'll talk about that a bit more in the next segment. We thought the Clippers and Nuggets would be a banger, and it's going to be a banger. And the Lakers T-Wolves, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of shocked by what took place in game one of that series, Sam. And let's start there with what we learned, and that is this T-Wolves team, after the Clippers, who I think were 18-3 over their last 21, this T-Wolves team was the second best team over the final 21 games. They were 17-4. And all season long, we sort of waited to see how this thing would gel and mesh, and Julius Randle was hurt for a while, and he comes back, and all of a sudden, you look at the Wolves, and they're pushing the Lakers around on Saturday and getting a win in Los Angeles in convincing fashion.
Yeah, I mean, this was a bad loss for the Lakers. Let's not sugarcoat it, Jason. And I hate to be that guy, but, like, I don't know how, excuse me, how long I've been screaming at you people make it? That the Lakers were just never this title contender this year that everyone decided to make them out to be the second they traded for Luka Doncic. Oh, they're contenders in the West. Oh, they're immediately going to beat the Denver Nuggets, who they haven't beaten in the playoffs in gosh knows how long. Oh, they're immediately going to beat the best team in the West, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now they can't even handle the freaking Minnesota Timberwolves without getting blown out in their own building. I'm sorry, this is a team that when they made this move was making it for the years to come. They punted on this year, at least at an organizational level. Sure, they made the playoffs. Sure, they played well down the stretch. But the fact of the matter is this: they're not a team that's built for playoff basketball, Jason. And that leads me into the most impressive thing out of the NBA from me this weekend, and something that actually made me want to watch the NBA again. There were only 3 of the 8 games where both teams scored into triple digits. Defense was beyond prevalent this weekend. Look at the Warriors-Rockets game. My gosh, that game was won with defense. I was so impressed throughout the league how much the defenses across the league in both conferences stepped up in the biggest way possible, especially on these great teams. And sure, you've got a couple of blowouts, but my goodness, if March Madness taught you anything, we are due for some really good basketball in the next few weeks.
Oh my God. Were we watching the same thing this weekend? Were we watching the same NBA this weekend? Was there some other NBA? Is there another NBA that we were watching? Did we learn something completely different? This was terrible. This was absolutely awful, which we'll talk about a little later on. But I thought this weekend was awful. Here's what we learned this weekend, because I will touch on this with you a little more. I'll take your point on in segment 3, and there's a good reason to take it on. I watched this weekend two teams that had not been in the playoffs in a while, had not been relevant NBA teams in a while, in the Pistons and Rockets. And last week on this show, I said about both teams, learning how to win in the playoffs is something that you can't do in one shot. Learning how to win in the playoffs is something that takes years. Go look at the old Pistons teams. Go look at Jordan and the Bulls having to overcome the Pistons. You can go on and on. It takes time. It isn't something that happens overnight. And you saw that with the Pistons, who were leading the Knicks in the fourth quarter at Madison Square Garden on Saturday, and looked like they were getting ready to put away that game. The Knicks couldn't buy a bucket. And we're getting pushed around by a Pistons team that's going to bruise them over the course of a 7-game series. Same thing, Rockets and Warriors. Did the Rockets even run an offensive set in that game? Did the Rockets run an offensive set play in that game? Because all I watched was what looked like a bunch of pickup basketball and guys running around and driving to the basket and trying to create contact and getting offensive rebounds and loose balls and scrapping it up, which is why you wound up with a game where neither team was able to score 100 points, which, again, we'll get to coming up in the next couple of segments. But to me, I thought this was bad basketball this weekend. You had the Thunder win a game by 51 points. I mean, these were 116 NBA. This was the NCAA, the NBA's version of the NCAA tournament opening round series, where the round of 64, where you had teams winning games by 51 points. You had blowouts all over the place. You really only had 3 competitive games. That's it. So you had 3 competitive games in your opening weekend, the curtain coming open, and that's what you got. You got the jester running around. It was terrible. It was awful basketball. Yeah. This was not enjoyable.
What that tracks back to, though, is not necessarily the depth of talent around the NBA. It's the play-in. And I again, tried to tell all these basketball fans this last week when they were fawning over these amazing matchups we had between the Heat and the Hawks. Oh, my gosh. Okay, sure. Let's go back to a 16-team playoff, the way it should be done. Heck, let's even shorten it from what it used to be. More than half the league making the playoffs does not seem right. And now you've got teams below 500. That's where you get 50-point blowouts.
That was embarrassing. I was getting ready to enjoy Easter brunch on Sunday over here at Durango, Stations Durango Casino. The Easter brunch buffet they had there, which was just amazing, by the way. Didn't gain any weight this weekend, though. And that game was unwatchable. We're coming back. More NBA next. This Monday edition of SportsWrap continues, and so does the conversation surrounding the NBA playoffs. We talked about what we learned in the opening segment of the show today. What we learned is there's some garbage teams in the playoffs. What we learned is some of these first-round series really may not be all that competitive. Adam Silver hiding in a dark hole somewhere, watching some of these first-round series. And you better hope some of these, like the Knicks and Pistons, go a little longer, Sam. Like the Nuggets and the Clippers goes a little longer than the Lakers, maybe the Rockets, because there are some series that look like they could be some real snoozers. I still think the Magic put up a fight against the Celtics, despite what we saw on Sunday with the Celtics being able to pull away late in that game. But I want to talk about officiating for a second, if you don't mind. I know it's one of those things people don't love to talk about. It's not glamorous. It's not anything like that. But we live in a world where people are cynical. People are skeptical, and rightly so by nature. If you're cynical and skeptical, you're not opening the email from the Nigerian prince who's giving you $10 million and just wants your social security number. It's okay to be cynical and skeptical. And sometimes I make fun of people who say things like, well, games are fixed and the outcomes are predetermined. And sometimes it's funny to make fun of tinfoil wrapped around the head guy. But I cannot help but watch. Two things can be true, by the way. One, the Rockets had no set offensive plays in that game, and they lack offensive weapons, which a lot of us knew. We all questioned who would be taking the final shot for the Rockets when it comes down to late in the game, because they don't have that guy. That guy consistently, right? I mean, you saw Fred VanVleet. I could have shot better than Fred VanVleet last night, who was terrible in that loss for the Rockets. But I'm watching that game last night, and all I could think to myself is, yeah, the NBA wants the Warriors in the playoffs. Yeah, the NBA wants the Warriors to win this series. The three guys, the three clowns that worked that game last night. You heard me right. Clowns that worked that game last night. Those three men, James Capers, Rodney Mott, Ben Taylor, Gidaminas Petratis, they should never work another playoff game. They should not be allowed to work another playoff game in this offseason, in this postseason. Did anybody watch that game? That was 90s Knicks Pacers kind of physicality. These guys were beating the crap out of each other, and you had officials sitting there with their hands on their hips and the whistles in their mouth and swallowing them because they're not making any calls. And the Warriors took advantage of that through the first 3 quarters of this game. 2 quarters and 3, 2 and 3 quarters of the game. And then the Rockets decided, oh wait, we're playing bully ball. We're gonna play just beat the crap out of the guy. It was jail yard basketball, essentially, with guys driving into the paint and just getting mugged and mauled. It was like a subway mugging in New York. If you've ever been to New York, you know what I mean. And the officials just let it happen. And then late in this game, they're missing calls. You get a key play where the Rockets are down 4. And a call right in front of the official on the sideline clearly goes off the Warriors. Out of bounds. Rockets don't have any challenges because Udoka used a stupid challenge a few minutes earlier, which he deserves to be wrecked for. And what happens? Steph Curry gets the ball and heaves one up from 40 feet for 3. And now the Warriors are up 7 and they're on their way to winning this game. Sam, I can't take it. I can't take it. The officiating was so bad in that game. Those guys should never work another game.
My favorite part of all that was the implication that if you've ever been to New York ever for any purpose, you've witnessed a subway mugging.
There you go.
That was my favorite part of the whole thing. I agree with you fundamentally. So what I will say though about the Rockets game, the Rockets Warriors game over the weekend, they at least called it seemingly for the majority of the game both ways. It did seem like they would let both teams kind of get away with the same amount. I will say the reason I agree with you on the league showing through the officials that they want the Warriors to do well in the postseason is because, do we have to go back to this? I swear I brought this up on the show last week, but maybe I didn't. The Grizzlies Warriors playoff game or play-in game was one of the most egregious examples of officiating you will ever see. There were a bunch of plays down the stretch where Draymond Green kept baiting Zach Edey into reaching above his head because Zach Edey's a foot taller than Draymond Green, and they kept calling Zach Edey for over-the-back fouls over and over again, and they were being real ticky-tack towards the Grizzlies and just kind of giving it to the Warriors. I do agree with you that, and again, this is a point that I'll draw back to continuously as the NBA continues to plummet the way that it has over the course of the last 2 to 3 years. Adam Silver is reeling. It seems like he is at a point where he is doing whatever possible to try and bring relevance back to his sport that is losing it at an all-time high rate after going through a phase where they were gaining it at an all-time high rate, and he had no problem taking the credit for it. And I think that the Warriors' production in these playoffs is going to speak a lot towards the health of basketball, because throughout all of Adam Silver's tenure in the NBA as commissioner of the NBA, the Warriors have kind of been that cornerstone, that team that had the dynasty, that had Steph Curry, the all-American superstar, the Derek Jeter of basketball, if you will, right? Adam Silver is used to them being on top, and that feels comfortable to him, and he knows that the game will grow in his mind if the Warriors do. Pay a lot of attention to how the Warriors do in the playoffs and how NBA PR handles the ever tanking nature of the popularity of their sport.
One more thing to add to that Rockets Warriors series. How every team in their right mind didn't make an offer to the Heat for Jimmy Butler is beyond me. Because if you can't see the difference that he has made in a Warriors team that was struggling just to make the play-in. Now, I know they wound up finishing where they did and it was in the play-in. But the fact of the matter is that team was dramatically better once Jimmy Butler came aboard. How more teams didn't offer the farm? Everybody's talking Rob Pelinka for Executive of the Year for getting Luka Doncic. And I understand why. Luka's much younger than Jimmy Butler. What Mike Dunleavy did in bringing Jimmy Butler to that Warriors team, which some people might have thought was a desperation move. Remember, Stephen Curry didn't want them to even make a move. If you remember his comments, don't do anything harsh. Think about where the Warriors would be. They might not even be in this series if not for the addition of Jimmy Butler. NHL to talk about next. Coming up in 10 minutes, baseball. What are we doing? We got to keep our stars healthy. Player safety. By the way, Max Fried almost threw a no-hitter for the Yankees yesterday. Max Fried, early pick for Cy Young Award in the American League semi-round. Have you seen him? What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?
My goodness, man. You got to take that TV that just broadcasts yes all day long, because I know it exists in your house, and just turn it to MLB Network. No. We got to get rid of this just soul Yankees
Max
talk
Fried
on the show.
He's got a 1.42 ERA, and he's 4-0.
And he's not even a top 5 favorite to win the Cy Young right now.
Then I would jump all over right now.
That's how good the pitching has been
I would jump all
in the
over
American League this year. Let me introduce you to Garrett Crochet, who's been a dog this year. How about Tariq Skubal looking for his second Cy Young in a row? Logan Gilbert has been an absolute junkyard dog this year for the Seattle Mariners.
Max Fried.
There is some,
by the way,
there is some very good pitching in the American League. But yes, after his outing yesterday, you're right. He is up to 4th in
tied for third. Tied for third on FanDuel with Logan Gilbert, the aforementioned Logan Gilbert, who eventually his heart will be taken out of it when that Mariners team can't score any runs. And you got Randy Arozarena and Julio Rodriguez hitting a combined like 190 in the early going this year. Just thought I'd mention that. Max Fried pitching on a winner all year. He's 4-0. He's going to win 20 games. ERA under 2. We love it. Very, very happy with Brian Cashman and that Max Fried pickup in this offseason. But we'll talk more baseball coming up in a couple of minutes, Sam, because there is some stuff to get to. By the way, the official scoring in Major League Baseball is just horrendous. Just horrendous. But anyway, let's talk about some hockey.
Please, just no more Yankees. That's
never. So I was out here this weekend. I saw so many people with Yankee hats in Las Vegas. They're everywhere. Yankee fans are everywhere. So let's talk about. I talked about this at the start of the show, and you shocked me when you talked about how compelling the NBA playoffs are going to be for X, Y, and Z reasons. And I'm sitting here going to myself, are we watching the same thing? And all I could think to myself was, maybe we got it all wrong. Maybe what we should be watching is hockey in this postseason. Maybe we should be watching the hockey postseason here as opposed to watching the NBA. Because unlike the NBA, hockey's the same in the postseason in terms of the way the games are called. The essence of the game is the same. And yes, you can ride a hot goalie in the playoffs to potentially a Stanley Cup, or at least an appearance in a Stanley Cup. Whereas in the NBA, it's kind of hard to ride just one player in this era of NBA, twos and, two-man combinations and three-man combinations. But I can't help but wonder if maybe we got it all wrong, Sam. Maybe we should just be watching the hockey postseason. Maybe I'll tune into the NBA playoffs when we get to like the conference finals. But I'm starting to think maybe I should just be watching the hockey playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs instead of watching the NBA playoffs, because I have a feeling the first 2 rounds of the NHL postseason are going to be far more compelling than anything we see in the NBA.
Well, they always are, Jason. That's why they call it the best postseason in sports.
Yep.
It's because it is. The Stanley Cup playoffs are a beast unlike any other, quite frankly, in sports. It's because of what you said. It's because of the nature of hockey as a sport. It's because the game does change after that 80-second game. It's because guys lay out for pucks now that they wouldn't lay out for in game 67 against Pittsburgh. It's because they're not calling that, the referees aren't calling that same hooking penalty that they're calling in game 43 in New Jersey, right? The Stanley Cup playoffs mean so much more, and I think it's because of the historic nature, even of something as simple as the Stanley Cup itself, right? Knowing that your name will be stamped on a ring that has guys from, the 1970s and 80s on it is a pretty cool piece of knowledge to have. Knowing that your name will be on there with the greats like Wayne Gretzky and Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby, it's pretty cool. All of that said, Jason, if you look at the NHL playoffs from this weekend, outside of a spectacularly entertaining, we'll say, Sunday night game, you had a bunch of blowouts too. It's not like the NBA is the only place where we get first round blowouts. The only difference is in hockey, sometimes the underdog ends up blowing out the favorite. All that said, though, like game to game, hockey is definitely the best postseason in sports. I think that a lot of sports fans would agree with my take on that. And now we can talk about the game last night because everyone was watching it. Everyone who was betting on sports was definitely watching the game between the Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. Your boy was tuned in because with 1/10 of a second left on the game clock, the Golden Knights netted an empty netter that made the final score 4-2 as opposed to 3-2. Obviously, Vegas covers the 1.5 with that empty net goal.
Overwhelming.
And 4-2 pushes you over the famous hockey playoff total of 5.5. My goodness, nobody but nobody beats the boys in Vegas.
No, they don't. And that's just, it's the nature. That's the nature of sports betting, isn't it? That's absolutely the nature of sports betting. By the way, I was a loser last night. I had the Rockets last night. I had the Rockets.
Wow. That's actually a surprise considering how in love you've been with the Warriors over the course of the last, 2 seasons.
I thought the Rockets would get game 1. And when they were down 23 and they cut it down to 2 or whatever it was, or 3, whatever it was, I was feeling pretty good about myself. I was like, oh, the momentum on their side. They're playing physical.
You must have been feeling pretty bad, though, because I remember distinctly there was one point in the game where Kevin Harlan said, we'll now bring you the in-game live odds brought to you by FanDuel. Yeah, Here's what the spread was at the beginning of the game. Houston -1. Yeah. Here's what it is live. Houston plus 16.5.
I saw that. And I thought about, at that point, putting a big bet on, big live bet on Houston plus 16.5. And I kind of regret that I didn't, because they only lost by 10. But it happens. I think the NHL playoffs in these first couple of rounds are definitely going to be a more compelling watch. Vegas is always fun. It will amaze people. I still have not gone to a Vegas Golden Knights game, and I've lived out here since August. Haven't gone to one. Not going to battle the crowd, Sam Yarnell. Jason Page doesn't do crowds. Don't like it. That's why I went to a minor league baseball game the other night. It's like 6,000 people there. It's just enough for me. I don't need anything more than that. We had some weird stuff going on in baseball this weekend. We'll get to it next. Coming up in 10 minutes, WrestleMania took over Vegas this weekend. Well, Monday Night Raw as well here. Really took over Vegas for the entire week last week. And then they had the show. And one night was much better than the other. And it may not be the way you think it would be. We'll talk about that coming up. Sam Yarnell, let's talk about some baseball. some things we saw over the weekend that caught our attention. Besides the fact that Max Fried now has an ERA of about 1.4 and is 4-0, and the Yankees are on
How about the fact that Mackenzie Gore's leading the league in strikeouts? We didn't talk about that, did we?
Oh, because the Nationals are, meh. They lost to the Rockies, for crying out loud. I mean, if you lose to the Rockies, come on, man. What are the Nats? Are they 500? Are they at 500?
Yeah, they're exactly 500 after splitting the doubleheader yesterday.
Yeah. So I want to talk about collisions in baseball. I mean, there's been this talk about adding like the extension to first base. The idea of putting one base inside the base path. For people who haven't seen it, you see it in like softball, you see it in Little League and things like that, where you have a first base inside the line for the fielder, and you have a first base outside the line for the base runner. And after watching two plays this weekend, one involving Rowdy Tellez, and one involving Luis Ariz, and in the case of Ariz, he got really banged up, running into Mauricio Dubon.
Yeah, they stretched him off the field.
Yeah, I know. He's okay though. He may be concussed, but it's not my brain.
Football injury.
I agree. It was terrible. It was awful. It was scary. They stopped the game for about 10 minutes. Now,
Crazy.
Is it a knee-jerk reaction to say we need to extend first base, Sam? Or is this something now that baseball has to look at? Because we see these plays a lot, Sam. A lot more than you'd think. And guys have been seriously hurt on these types of plays. Anthony Rizzo was concussed and never the same again after a play like this at first base. If you have an extra base outside, what harm are we doing to the game versus the harm we're potentially doing to players that we're paying all this money as much as anybody in all professional sports?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. It is I do think a little bit of got to change something because two things happened over the weekend. But this is what I'll say. As you know, and as I'm sure many of the viewers know, I'm a big college baseball guy, huge. And college baseball actually implemented this year. And I will say one thing that I have noticed, and that has seemed to have been a trend, a recurring trend, a theme even, if you will, motif maybe, is that the umpires are seeming to have more problems with the second first base than they were back in the day where they just had to watch one base. It seems like we're getting more calls objectively wrong just based on timing, but also it seems like there are so many rules around who can step on which base at what time, and there's so much chance of a misstep by the player or stepping on the crack between the two bases, and that's an automatic out if you add the second base. If you step on the fielder's base as the batter runner, you're automatically out, and vice versa for the fielder. So high throw that the first baseman has to jump for and lands a little awkwardly, just happens to land on the batter runner's base, the batter runner's going to get called safe, and they should have been called out. That's where all of this starts to get into kind of a gray area for me. Whereas I think at like the lower levels, maybe even up to college baseball, Division I college baseball, that is, we can have it, and we can talk about it at the high school level and trying to eliminate or at least mitigate these kind of injuries at the lower levels where players are potentially more careless with their actions. But at the major league level, it's got to be the risk associated with the reward. And as a professional athlete, you've got to be able to have the accuracy with your body to maintain that 3x3 foot box.
We talked about bad officiating in the NBA in the second segment of the show. You've got an issue right now with bad umpiring around Major League Baseball, don't you?
Yeah, and I think it kind of plays into that, what we were just talking about with the two first bases, right? What I've seen so much in college baseball is these umpires not be able to adjust with the times, and that's fine. But as an umpire, as a union of umpires, you've got to be able to go to the oversight body and say, hey, we're having trouble with this whole new concept that you've introduced. And I think over the weekend we had a couple more examples of how Major League Baseball is maybe even this many years removed from its introduction, still struggling to use replay to its fullest ability. I'll take you now to Colorado for a game between the Rockies and the Nationals, and I'm sure everyone wants to hear about that. But obviously, Jacob Stallings taking this pitch off of seemingly his helmet. At first glance, it looks like it hits him right in the head. I was watching the game live, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope the guy is okay. It looks like he just took that fastball right off of the helmet like Paul DeJong did a couple of days ago. Something we've seen a lot so far this season. It seems like pitchers have less control. Then they replay it on TV, and you realize the guy was squaring to bunt, and it hits his bat before it hits his helmet. Naturally, the Nationals challenged the play, asked for a replay, but for some reason they were charged with a challenge in the 8th inning, which, again, different than my understanding of the rule. Thought 8th inning and beyond, we were all crew chief initiated review. Guess that's not the case anymore. Regardless, Nationals challenge, and it's upheld.
I mean, it's
they
right
say
there.
it still hit him. It's right in front of you. It was right in front of me. It hits him in the bat before it hits it. Not discrediting the fact that it hit him in the helmet at all, but it hit him in the bat first. It's a foul ball. We've got to get this right, especially if you want to introduce ABS for every single pitch.
You're right, Sam. I mean, if you can't get it right with all the different views we have and all the different angles we have on replay, we just need to throw the whole thing out, because you delay a game for 2 or 3 minutes and you still got the call wrong.
Exactly.
It's mind-boggling. We're coming back. WrestleMania talk next. Coming up in 10 minutes, odds and ends. We don't often talk about the world of wrestling on this show. When something crazy significant happens, we talk about it because there is a crossover appeal between many of you that watch this show and many people that watch wrestling. A lot of NASCAR people watch wrestling. A lot of football people watch wrestling. I saw George Kittle sitting behind the broadcast position throughout this entire weekend at WrestleMania here in Las Vegas, where our show, or at least this part of the show, emanates from. And last week, I mean, Vegas was just a zoo with all the different wrestling events in town. WrestleCon, WWE World, all these different things that the WWE did. And let me just say this. The world of wrestling in WWE right now is on fire. I mean, between the Netflix deal, which has been a downer for me because I don't think of Netflix as top of mind. So I'm not going to go and click on Netflix the way I used to with USA on a Monday night to watch Raw. So I've watched a lot less of Monday Night Raw because it's on Netflix and trying to keep up with it. But the world of wrestling right now and what Paul Levesque has done as the head man in charge with Vince McMahon now out of the picture with WWE is simply amazing. I mean, he has put this thing on a global stage in a way that Vince McMahon probably dreamed of doing for so many years. And WrestleMania is obviously, it's their Super Bowl for people who don't follow wrestling. And they had a fantastic event. 124,000 people showed up at Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas this weekend just for the WrestleMania, the actual wrestling on Saturday and Sunday, the 2-day event. And it had its ups, it had its downs. Big winner from the weekend, really Saturday night. Saturday's WrestleMania card wound up being much better than Sunday's. And there's simply no getting around that. The Seth Rollins triple threat match with CM Punk and Roman Reigns was the show stealer, really. And in a lot of ways, Sunday failed to live up to the hype that Saturday delivered with Paul Heyman and the shot in the crotch heard around the world to Roman Reigns, as only wrestling can provide. Things I never thought I'd say in this show, shot to the crotch. But, I mean, it was a terrific weekend overall. But then Sunday, the main event of John Cena and Cody Rhodes, which we had this huge build-up to with John Cena turning heel, Sam Yarnell. You know a thing about turning heel, don't you? You're kind of the heel. You're good for being the heel, I'd say. John Cena turning heel. And then what took place in that match between he and Cody Rhodes And John Cena winning a world championship for the 17th time at the age of 47, despite the fact that he really can't even wrestle anymore. Just kind of a silly story for him to win, because he's leaving the company at the end of the year. He's retiring. So I was kind of meh about the main event. It wasn't great. A lot of the favorites, if you were betting on this, Sam, could you imagine betting on wrestling, by the way? People do it
in Canada.
What was that?
They do it in Canada.
They can do it.
FanDuel Canada has betting lines for WWE.
Wait, nobody in the U.S. does?
You're not allowed to. No,
really?
Not legally. Not legally.
I didn't know that. Because I saw all the different
offshore, 100%.
Okay.
But again, we don't endorse non-legal gambling.
No, we don't. We absolutely do not. Unless it's on wrestling, because you can't get it in the U.S. and you got to do it somewhere. Which, by the way, if you're betting on something that is 100% scripted, bless your heart, there's a phone number for you. We can give it to you on our X feeds if you feel so inclined. Did you watch? First of all, if I know you, you probably didn't watch any WrestleMania this weekend, right? There was too many good sports things on, right?
Yeah, 100%. But I did, as I am wont to, talk to a former WWE superstar, who I will not name because I don't think he would like that. But he's very familiar with the whole scene and Paul Heyman and Paul Levesque and all that. And it seemed like the wrestling community, i.e. the very inner workings of WWE, the people who work for the company, that kind of thing, were very happy with the product that they put out. And that is good. That is important. It is always, as any sort of artist or content creator, it is always important to want to stand behind your work. That said, I was just scrolling Twitter about it because I honestly just wanted to see if John Cena beat, the American Wonder Boy or whatever his name is. And it seemed like everyone hated it. And I was kind of confused because, obviously, I don't remember, it was last year maybe, there was some insane WrestleMania, and maybe it's just maybe it was 2 years ago. Maybe it's just a hangover from that. But I don't know, man. It seems like if the people who put on the performance are happy with it, and the buildup was as big as it is, I don't understand how the general public can be so dissatisfied with the product that was put out.
Because wrestling fans are never satisfied. That is the one thing I can tell you from monitoring wrestling Twitter, wrestling X, whatever it is, wrestling social media over the years is, wrestling fans are never satisfied. And Triple H, Paul Levesque, actually made a reference to this on Saturday night during the WrestleMania post-event press conference that they do. They do one on Saturday and Sunday. He said, it's hard to make anybody truly happy. Wrestling fans are always going to find something to complain about. I.e. my talking about the championship match on Sunday, which if you were expecting some wrestling masterpiece between 47-year-old John Cena, who barely gets in the ring anymore, and a ring technician like Cody Rhodes, who's going to have to carry him for most of the match, you were delusional. It wasn't going to happen. But John Cena as champion? It's going to be interesting to see how they play that out over the next few weeks. We're coming back. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. I'm laughing, and you'll find out why in a moment. Before we get to odds and ends, a reminder, make sure, if you have not done so yet, to check out the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast. It's available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast. You can listen to this show while you drive to work, while you're in bed at night, while you're having lunch, the train ride to work, whatever it may be, on the subway. You can listen to the show anywhere in the world. You can also check out the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. All great content there all the time. Clips from the show, extended highlights from the show, you name it. It's all on the YouTube channel, SportsWrap with Jason Page. And without any further delay, Sammy Arnell, time for some odds and ends. Nico Iamaleava. Did I get it? I did it?
Yeah, good job.
Yes!
Good job.
That's it. That's it. We are there, baby. He's going to go play for UCLA. I intentionally did that story first because throughout the entire break, I kept saying his name so that I didn't butcher it when we came out, because I have had nightmares about saying that name. I could give you all the Finnish hockey pronunciations. I could give you Yelena Ostapenko. I could give you Arina Sabalenka. By the way, Ostapenko beat Sabalenka this weekend. But I can't give you Nico Iamaleava. I did it twice in one segment.
Now
he's going to go play for UCLA.
I want you to open up your little phone there, because I sent you the name of one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in this draft. Get ready to learn this name because it's going to be household pretty soon. He went to Arizona. Now let's hear you try.
I mean, I'm just going to say how it looks is Tedoroya McMillan.
That's actually pretty close. That's pretty close.
I mean, it's... What is it?
Tedoroya McMillan.
Tedoroya McMillan.
They just call him T-Mac, though.
That's why they call me JPay. Works. Okay. I like it. Fair enough.
No one calls you that.
No, they used to. All right, Sam Yarnell. Odds and ends. AJ Brown, if you happen to see a Rolls Royce, a brand new Rolls Royce rolling around on the streets, it could belong to AJ Brown. His car was stolen out of his driveway, as he explained on his IG story. He offered the thief a chance to return the car without facing charges. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to take you up on that, by the way. Warning of consequences if the car is not returned. We keep saying this all the time. Protect your stuff, man. I mean, you just got a Rolls Royce sitting in your driveway? I mean, come on, AJ Brown. I'm not trying to victim blame here, even though it sounds like I am. But I mean, let's go, Sam. I mean, it's a Rolls Royce. You don't leave a Rolls Royce sitting in your driveway. How much money does AJ Brown make? Can we look that up? How much does AJ Brown make? I'm going to look it up.
Enough. I promise you it's enough money to where...
To have a garage?
He doesn't have to worry about $110,000 Rolls Royce that much.
He makes an average of $32 million a year. You can't put a vehicle in a garage, a Rolls Royce?
So here's the thing. Because you're leaving out a very crucial part of the story. AJ Brown said to the thief, you can return it today without charges. Or the alternative is, I'll just come find you myself. Now listen, I'm not one to profess fear, but AJ Brown is probably what, 6'2", 210 pounds. That might be generous. Maybe 6 foot.
6'1".
Man, I mean, statisticians love me. Let me just say this.
Yeah.
If a wide receiver, an NFL wide receiver, famous for being so emotional, he had to read books about his emotions en route to a Super Bowl win on the sidelines of the NFC Championship, I'm not messing with that guy. I don't care if I'm the smartest, most loaded up car thief in the world. That's not the guy I want to mess with. And if I saw that, I would have brought the car back probably immediately and wiped it clean of fingerprints so he couldn't hire a private investigator to try and track me down and sue me. That's what I would do.
Okay.
Because I don't want to mess with a multimillionaire who's proven himself on national TV to potentially not be stable.
If you are brazen enough to steal a Rolls Royce out of AJ Brown's driveway, I don't think you're returning it. Just saying. If you were able to do that in the first place, I don't think you're returning it. Good luck, AJ Brown, finding that vehicle. When you do, it'll probably be in
a million pieces.
I was going to say, it's probably in about 17,000 different parts like my brain. PGA Tour, RBC Heritage, congratulations to Justin Thomas. Wins for the first time in 3 years, Sam Yarnell.
I mean, did you see the playoff hole? The putt that he made to win this tournament was incredible. JT drawn back to his old self. with this tournament. I saw an interesting thing over the weekend. I think Justin Thomas holds the course record at like 13 major golf courses, this being one of them. It's crazy how low that guy can shoot when he's on.
$3.6 million for the win for Justin Thomas. Andrew Novak, your journeyman, finished in second, $2.2 million for second place. That's it for us. We're out of time. We'll see you tomorrow. Brian Kenny on the show then. Sam, thanks. We'll see you all later.